Challenge Cup round of 16 done, and we now know who the quarterfinals are. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. Okay, so Challenge Cup, we're not gonna, I just did a 30-odd minute review of the Champions Cup round of 16. We're not going to spend as long on the Challenge Cup here, but we will run down through the results and talk about some of the things that happened the weekend as well, and then have a look at the road to Bilbao in terms of what the fixtures are for the quarterfinals. So we're going to start with the first game. So on Friday, Connacht Rugby 29, Hollywoodbets Sharks 12. And this one, the Sharks basically just keeping the scoreboard ticking over through penalties, but Connacht, they get over for a try through Shea Mullins, and that's converted. So, but Sharks leading 12-7 at the break. Second half, then Connacht kind of up the pace a little bit, and called forward Seamus Hurley-Langton, who's been injured for a while, also scores forward again, and in the end, fairly comfortable win for Connacht. Connacht Rugby 29, Hollywoodbets Sharks 12, the final score there. Then into the Saturday game, so Montpellier, one of the standard teams in the pool stages, and a fairly comfortable win for them. Montpellier 53, Perpignan 13, 17-6 at half-time. And Perpignan kind of bring it a little bit closer as well at the start of the second half. Both teams kind of like one scoring tries one after the other, kind of keeping in there, but then towards the end, Montpellier kind of stretch away. I think Rattez got his hat-trick in the game as well for Montpellier, so his 3 tries in how many did they score altogether? 9 tries altogether, I think, for Montpellier to 1 for Perpignan. But yeah, a fairly comfortable win. Montpellier 53, Perpignan 13, and Montpellier, I think, still at the moment probably the favourites to lift the trophy. Next, then we have Exeter 31, Munster 21. Sounds close. It wasn't close. 31-0 at halftime to Exeter. And the kind of Jack Crowley show in the second half. He scores 2 tries and has a hand in the other one as well. Ty Byrne gone over as well to get, put a bit of gloss on the results maybe for Munster that maybe they didn't deserve, honestly. Because Exeter, as I said, scored all the points in that first half. 31-21, the final score. Munster, once a massive force in European rugby, obviously nowhere near that level at the minute, and feels like they got a lot of work to do for next season to be able to, whether it's at this level or Champions Cup level, to actually get themselves back in the mix for knockouts. The Chiefs themselves have kind of dropped down a bit as well. It's only a few seasons since they made a Champions Cup semi-final, but after that season, completely changed the squad. Complete turnover in the squad, rebuilding again, and this is kind of the level that they're at. But they're showing, that they're certainly one of the contenders for this title. Maybe not the favourites, but certainly one of the contenders. So Exeter Chiefs 31, Munster 21, the final score there. Then we had Benetton Rugby 38, Cardiff Rugby 35. So controversial end to this one. Benetton leading 33-21 at half time, but Cardiff producing, a late surge, and into that second half, we have kind of tries in the opening minutes, and then Cardiff get another try, get themselves back within 3 points. But then they can't get the final score, even though, in the last couple of minutes, they felt like they actually got there. Asked the referee to check it. There's communication there, not very clear between the referee and the Cardiff captain about whether it was checked in the background or not. It seems like the referee was trying to say that it was checked and that there was no clear evidence of a grounding, whereas the way he was communicated it, you could interpret it as it wasn't checked, but I'm pretty sure that he was trying to say that it was checked in the background and that they didn't see a grounding. But we didn't see too many replays of it, in live play or like when there were breaks in play either. And yeah, it's one of those ones where, I feel like the officials just could have taken the time to just make, because the game is 3 points in the game and it's a potential win for Cardiff if that ball is grounded. Spend the time to review it, and if it's not grounded, show all the angles, and then put it up on the big screen and make it clear to everybody. And I think that's what should have happened. It didn't happen. I know that there is kind of a directive for Timos to sweep more in the background because we don't want too much, kind of break up or play or whatever. But when it's something like that, when there's only a couple of minutes left in the game anyway, and it's an important thing, and if the TMO feels and the referee feels that there isn't a grounding there, well, just go through the process, put it up on the screen, have a look at it, and if it's not there, at least just showing it, and it's a bit clearer. I think it would have been better for the fans of both teams involved, rather than this feeling of Cardiff feeling like that. I don't like it being said, but I don't like to say it. Sorry, I can't stop other people saying it. But people saying they're getting cheated out of it and all this kind of stuff. I just feel like the process is there to be able to put it on the big screen, do a formal review, and then once you've done that, then people will still argue about whether they can see the ball touching the line or not. That's always going to happen, depending on which team you follow. But yeah, I just felt like they could have made it a bit simpler on themselves by actually doing that. But Benetton 38, Cardiff 35, the final score there. Right, and then we move on then to Newcastle Red Bulls 18, La Rochelle 26. So Newcastle, one of the surprise packages certainly of the pool stages, did fairly well there. La Rochelle, probably in the opposite way, a surprise package in the ChampionsCup, in that they didn't do all that well at all, dropping down to this competition, but they got themselves a win. So La Rochelle winning at halftime 15-8, then into the second half, and Newcastle get themselves, I think they did get themselves into the lead, wasn't it? They scored a try, converted, which got them level, and then I think they scored a penalty then to take the lead, but not for long. We have a couple of penalties for La Rochelle and also a try that kind of sealed the victory late on for them as well. I think the last minute they scored a try. So, La Rochelle, not really used to playing in this competition in recent years, but it's a European trophy, and I think, with Ronan O'Gara there, they certainly will be trying their best to make it as far as they can in the competition. Newcastle, they had a good run, but they couldn't find that momentum in the last kind of 20 minutes or so to actually bring the victory home. So Newcastle Red Bulls 18, La Rochelle 26, the final score. Then another controversial end to a game. Ulster Rugby 28, Ospreys 24. So this one, Ulster got off to a nice start. Isichuku in to score, but then we have Morgan Williams responding for Ospreys, and then we have Kasende going in for them as well. Then Ulster having to respond. McCann goes in for them. Then into the second half, then we have Stockdale and Timothy scoring for Ulster, seemingly giving them a nice cushion, 28-17, I think, at the time. But then we have a penalty try for Ospreys. We have Jack Murphy going to the bin as well, and then Ulster looking, final minute of the game, looking to run the ball out of their own 22. They do get out to 22, but then ball gets intercepted, passed, and Ospreys run under the post. Looked like there was maybe 2 or 3 minutes left of the game or whatever at that point, and looked like it's going to be the winning score, Ospreys into the quarterfinals. But then we have a Timo check, and the Timo referee decided the ball has come out of the hands of an Ospreys player. And I did a full review on this, so if you want to go check it out, it's on the channel. But I said in that one as well that it's one of those ones where if you are an Ospreys fan, that ball is absolutely not coming out of the hands forward. And if you're an Ulster fan, it's definitely coming out of the hands forward. And if you're neutral, it's somewhere in between. And it's one of those ones where you've seen tries being called back for that before, and you've seen tries been given and not being called back for that, where the advantage is kind of given to the attacker for that. So I can absolutely see why Ospreys fans would not be happy with that call being made there. And again, kind of controversial end to the game there, but it's one of these ones where had the try stood, then it would have been controversial as well, because then you would have had Ulster fans saying that was clearly a forward pass. Why was it not picked up by the referee in the TMO? So whatever happened with that last that pass there for that score that was ruled out, given or not, it was going to be controversial. Ulster, they got the rub of the green in the end. Ospreys, decent performance from them though, because like Ulster have been one of the kind of the form teams in the URC. Ospreys have been working their way back up the table, having had an absolutely terrible start to the season. And you feel like it would have been nice for them getting into a quarterfinal and just seeing how far they could go from there, because we've seen Ospreys previously being able to produce their best form right at the end of the season. We had kind of the miracle 3% chance where they made the playoffs in the URC a couple of years ago. So we know that they can kind of hit their peak right at the end of the season, but it wasn't to be for them. And Ulster 28, Ospreys 24, the final score in that one. Okay, on to the next game then, and it was another surprise one here. Stade Francais 31, Dragons 36. Well done to the Dragons. I'm wearing the jersey in celebration of the fact they went away to France and they got a win. And it feels like a big win, because it wasn't just a case of a dire game where they just about scraped through. It was exciting game, lots of scores from both teams, and they didn't wilt. And that's the main thing. They actually finished stronger of the two teams. They do start off very well. Angus O'Brien and then Brody Coughlin going in for scores for them, and they actually have the lead 17-14 at half time. Then into the second half, and Stade, they score through Johan Tanga right after the break. So then Coleman goes in for the Dragons, and then we have, who is it? Isela, I think, completes his hat trick with 20 minutes to go. So it looks like Stade, are have a decent lead. I think like it's 31-24 at that point. But then the last 15 minutes, we have a couple of tries. So Elliot D first for the Dragons, and that brings them back within 2 points. And then finally, Wyn Jones gets in for the final score minutes ago, converted, and pretty much it's game over once the conversion is over. And yeah, brilliant performance by the Dragons. And we talked about before where in the URC they had that kind of mini resurgence where they're getting results, and that kind of fell off where they were still producing decent performances, but they weren't getting over the line for wins. But they've done it in this one, and they've done it in style as well. So Stade Francais 31, Dragons RFC 36. Absolutely amazing from them. On to then, I think we're on to the last game of the round of 16. Yeah. So Zebre Parma 31, POW 15. So POW, one of the teams that dropped down from the ChampionsCup this year. Zebre leading 14-5 at half time. And, it was then in the second half, then they kind of consolidate their lead with another couple of tries. Stavili, I think, got the fourth try, and he got the first try as well for them. And with 10 minutes to go, it's looking like Zebre are pretty much home and hosed. They get a second yellow card because Stavile, I think, got a yellow card in the first half, but Licata gets a yellow card with 10 minutes to go, and then POW get a couple of tries, unconverted tries in those last 10 minutes. But still, Zebre still had a healthy lead by the time we got to the final minute or so. So Zebre 31, POW 15, the final score there. Okay. So now we're going to have a look at the road to Bilbao. So we start on the left-hand side. So we have number 1 seeds, Montpellier versus Connacht. And yeah, it's going to be a tough one for Connacht. But Connacht now, I think they've won 5 games on the bounce, if I'm right. So they won 4 URC games on the bounce. And then they won this weekend as well. So I think that's 5 on the bounce for them. So that's a decent run of games, especially for Connacht. They're so inconsistent. And that's been one of the issues they've had in this competition is, to get through a knockout, get through knockout rounds, you've got to be consistent week to week. You can't be like good performance, bad performance, because your bad performance, you're knocked out. But they're going to have to produce one of their best performances of the season, though. Going to Montpellier, the favourites to lift the title, it's absolutely going to be a tough one for them there. Under Stuart Lancaster, they certainly have been improving, but this will be a massive test on how much they actually have improved under him, especially in the second half of the season. Then the bottom half of that side of the draw. So you got Zebre Parma versus the Dragons RFC. So all URC clash there, which is good to see. And if Connacht could somehow beat Montpellier, they then would obviously face the winner of that game. If Zebre win, Zebre are going to be at home then, and if Dragons win, they have to go over to Galway. So yeah, a lot to kind of play for on that side of the draw. But you got 3 Euro C teams, and hopefully out of those 3, one of them can upset Montpellier, and we can have a Euro C team in the final. If Connacht manage to do it, at that point, obviously, I'm Irish, so I'd love Connacht to make it, but it would also mean that we're guaranteed a Euro C team into the final. I'd be absolutely delighted with any of those 3 Euro C teams making it there. And then on the other side of the draw, then we have Benetton, the number 2 seeds, versus Exeter Chiefs, and Exeter, number 7 seeds. We're so used to seeing them in ChampionsCup. They've taken this competition seriously. We saw that against Munster. And yeah, they certainly can go to Benetton and get a win. And that's going to be a tight one there, I think. And it could be, you're looking at, apart from Montpellier, I think are big favourites for their game. And other than that, you don't really see too many ones like the rest of them. They're too close to call, I think, a lot of them. But Benetton home advantage certainly will be helpful for them. And then we have Ulster versus La Rochelle. So, Ron Lagara coming back to Ireland for a quarter-final in a big European game. Ulster certainly will feel, that they've almost been given a second chance because, certainly some players would have thought that they were out when they saw Ospreys running under the post for that try that wasn't given. And sometimes that can kind of re-energize a team to produce a better performance. So we'll see if they can do that or not. But again, that side of the draw, we do have 2 Euro C teams, both at home. And, if both of those could win, then we would have, again, the potential of a guaranteed Euro C team into the finals from that side of the draw as well. But as I said, looking at all these matchups, very close to call. The only one that would, at the minute at least, I'd be happy to call one way or the other is probably Montpellier beating Connacht. But, by the time I come to do my preview of the games of the weekend, that might have changed as well. But yeah, I think it's an exciting draw for the teams that are left in there. Again, we don't have too many teams outside of the top 8. We have the Dragons who've made it through as 13 seeds, and La Rochelle have made it through as 11 seeds. So there's 6 of the top 8 seeds making it through. So, fair play to Dragons and La Rochelle, really kind of upsetting the odds to get themselves through into the last 8. And yeah, it feels like it's, looking at all the teams in there, it's one of those ones where win your quarterfinal, and why not dream of going on and lifting the trophy? Because I think any team out of these 8 could certainly be the ones to be raising that trophy in Bilbao in May.